Okay, this is how to go camping in the snow in a tent. So what I'm doing here is creating a compacted space. I got a friend in to come and help me. So I was jumping around with my snowshoes on, you'll see in a sec. And what it was doing was leaving little mounds through, because of the snowshoes, the holes in the snowshoes. So I got Ree to come along with her skis. So after I compacted it and made a mound, she would then come along, oh, she nearly fell over, come along and smooth it out with her skis. This is a really important thing to do to camp in the snow, because if you don't, as you all know, if you walk through the snow, you get big holes where you've walked with your boots. If you don't compact the snow, when you put your tent up and you crawl into bed, you end up with big holes where your hands fall through the snow and you're crawling in, or your knees, and you end up having a really uncomfortable night's sleep. So this is really important for a comfy night's sleep. And as we know, if you're not comfortable in the snow, you're not going to enjoy yourself. So while Ree's finishing smoothing it off and we're happy with it, I get the tent out and be careful not to actually walk on the space that we've created. And once Ree moves out of the way, we lie down the tent and set that up. Get the poles out. And then once I have set that up, what we do is actually dig out in front of the tent where the vestibule goes. So your vestibule is your bit that comes out at the front of the tent. And what this does is actually create a space for your feet, for when you are hopping in at night. You can sit down on the edge of your tent without having to squat down or kneel down in the snow and end up dragging heaps of snow into the tent, which then melts and makes everything wet. You really don't want wet things in your tent in the snow. So by creating a space that you can step into, you can then sit down comfortably and take your shoes off and leave it in the hole underneath your vestibule. I'm digging it out before I put the fly on the tent so that I'm not getting the fly covered in snow either, even though it doesn't really matter. But I'm not putting holes in this in the fly from having to dig around it. So I'm digging a big hole. I'm using the snow that I'm digging out to actually throw around the side of the tent to create an insulating layer. So if it gets windy overnight, it'll actually provide some warmth and protection for us. So Ree and I are sleeping in the tent together. So digging the hole out of the way, I'll show you it in a second. So the things that I would leave in the vestibule hole or the pit are, my shoes. So I'll actually sit there and take off my shoes and leave them in there. I'll leave my backpack in there as well. I'll take out precious items that I don't want to freeze, or that could possibly get damaged from the snow or the freezing. It got down to about -3, I think, this night. Here I am putting the fly on as Ree's finishing off digging. We actually got down to the snow. I got a bit confused, as I always do with flies, and put it on the wrong way. I nearly threw it over Ree. Put it on the right way. Make sure you use snow pegs as well. It's really important. I have a note up there in a minute for that as well, because if you don't use snow pegs and they come out and you have a really big wind through the night, a really big gust of wind, you'll end up losing your fly, which is not much fun. So there we go, dug down to the grass. If it's really deep snow, you can dig down and then have a vestibule section where you can almost stand in. There we go, another note about snow pegs. If you can stand in your vestibule, you can then actually create steps that lead into it, and it creates like a bit of a luxury moment. So that's kind of cool. You really want to be comfortable in the snow as much as possible, because then you'll enjoy it. Here I am telling a student what I'm doing, giving them some advice on building their own wall around their tent. They're clearly listening very intently. As they look at their feet. Here I am digging and just adding some more insulation. There is the hole for underneath the vestibule. So when I zip that up, it'll actually create a nice secured little space. I've built up snow around the edge of the vestibule as well, so I've secured that. There's my wall. The finished product is coming right up. And on another angle. And then you can see some students' wall that they made, which is inventive and kind of cool. So the prevailing winds were coming from that one direction. And there I am. Thank you very much for listening.